I first heard the legend from my grandfather. Never run in the deep woods at night, he told me. There was something dark and sinister in his voice. If you do, it'll hear you. And if it hears you, it'll never stop following. I laughed it off back then. Just an old man's superstition. One of those creepy tales meant to keep kids from wandering too far. Well, I don't laugh anymore. It started with a stupid bet. We were camping deep in Black Hollow Forest, me, Jason, and Eric. The night was thick with smoke and laughter, our voices cutting through the silence of the woods. We'd been swapping ghost stories, one-upping each other with ridiculous dares, when Eric grinned at me, eyes gleaming with mischief. "Bet you won't run to the old fire tower and back," he said, tilting his beer. "That's like a mile away," I scoffed. "Exactly," he smirked. "Run there, tag the tower, and come back. Do it in under 10 minutes and I'll buy your drinks for a month." Jason snorted. "Dude, that place is haunted. Everyone knows what happens when you run in these woods at night." "Oh, please," I rolled my eyes. I was buzzed enough not to care. The legends were just superstitious stories, and how could I say no to free drinks for a month? So, like an idiot, I laced up my shoes, set my phone's timer, and ran. The forest was different at night. The moment I stepped beyond the glow of our campfire, the air felt heavier, thicker. The trees pressed in, their branches tangled like skeletal fingers. The wind whispered through the leaves, but it didn't sound like wind. I shook off the unease and focused on the crunch of dirt under my feet. Then, I heard it. A twig snapped behind me. I turned, my breath caught in my throat. Nothing, just black trees stretching into the void. I exhaled sharply, shaking my head. Just my imagination. But then, another sound. A second pair of footsteps. Not running, but matching my pace. My stomach twisted. I told myself it was an echo, or an animal. But deep down, I knew better. I picked up speed and the footsteps followed. Not normal running, not heavy or clumsy, but something fast and effortless. The whispering wind turned into ragged breathing. It was too close, too inhuman. I broke into a full sprint, and the breathing followed, faster and closer. It was right behind me. The old fire tower loomed ahead, rusted and skeletal against the night sky. I pushed myself harder, legs burning, lungs screaming. I just needed to touch it, prove I made it. I slammed my palm against the cold metal. Silence. The footsteps were gone. I turned, gasping for breath, expecting what? Some animal? A trick of the night? The woods were still, empty. I laughed, shaking. I was freaking myself out, I thought. It was just paranoia. Then my phone buzzed. 3 missed calls from Jason. I called him back. The second he picked up, his voice screamed through the speaker. "Run. Now." "What the hell?" I started. But then I saw it. The trees weren't empty anymore. Something stood between the trunks. Something tall, gaunt, wrong. Its shape vaguely looked human, but its limbs were too long and too thin. Its arms hung low, fingers curling into hooks. And its face. There was no face, just smooth, pale skin stretched over a skull too large for its frame. It tilted its head and I ran. The second my feet hit the ground, it moved too. But not running. It was gliding. It didn't stumble. It didn't break stride. It just kept moving. Branches lashed against my face. My lungs burned. I could see the glow of our campfire ahead. Jason and Eric standing, screaming my name. I forced my legs faster, pouring everything I had into that final stretch, and I crossed into the light, and it stopped. The second I entered the fire's glow, the weight lifted. I turned around, gasping. The trees behind me were empty. No thing. No footsteps. No sound. Jason grabbed me, shaking my shoulders. "You idiot," he hissed. "Why the hell did you run?" Eric was pale, his voice shaking. "You don't run in these woods, man. You don't. That thing, once it hears you, it follows. Forever." Then, Why did it stop? I whispered. Jason swallowed hard. Because we were watching. I didn't understand. But then he said the part that made my stomach drop. It only chases you when you're alone. I didn't sleep that night. We packed up the next morning in silence. No one joked. No one laughed. But I felt it. A weight in the back of my skull. A presence. Watching. Days passed. Then, weeks. I convinced myself it was just my paranoia. Then, one night I woke up to the sound of footsteps in my yard. Slow. Steady. Matching my heartbeat. I didn't look outside, because deep down, I already knew it followed me home. And I was alone. I don't go into the woods anymore. I keep my house bright. I never walk alone at night. But sometimes, I hear it. Footsteps in the hallway. Ragged breathing just outside my door. Waiting. If you ever find yourself deep in the woods at night, hear a twig snap behind you, and feel the urge to run, don't. No matter how scared you are, no matter how close it feels. Because if you run, it will hear you. And once it hears you, it never stops.